Welcome. Today, this webinar will be led by myself and Wes Lipschultz. I'm Adam Lee. I'm our Executive Associate Dean here at the School of Computing and Information. A little bit about my background. My undergraduate and graduate degrees are in computer science. I have research interests in the computer security and privacy space. But for the last 7 or so years, I've been working really closely with Wes as an Associate Dean here at our school, focusing on a lot of student and academic affairs issues, and had a lot of fun working there. I'm outside of the office. I've got 4 boys, 2 dogs, 2 rabbits who didn't make the slide, and a scorpion. And you know, as a family, we spend a lot of our time outside, skiing in the winter, hiking and biking in the summer. And you know, when I get a few moments to myself, I enjoy playing guitar and doing woodwork.
And I am Adam's co-presenter, Wes Lipschultz. Welcome. It's great to have you all here so that we can share this wonderful degree with you. I'm the Senior Director of Student and Academic Affairs in the School of Computing and Information at Pitt. And in this context, with the Master of Data Science, I'm the Student Success Lead in that capacity. I've got about 29 years in higher education, which means some might take it as that means I'm experienced. I just take it to mean I'm old, but I am also experienced. My background in that realm maps to many different areas. I've got advising experience, recruitment, student success, experiential learning, admissions, and other parts of the nooks and crannies of higher education. My graduate background is in social psychology and instructional systems. And I have a partner. I'm married to Christine. My daughter, Claire, is 11 and a half. And I am the human father to our dog, Rosie, who you can see sort of on the right-hand side of the slide. I also do a lot with music. I play piano, harmonica, ukulele. I enjoy also with, as Adam does, the outdoors. So I do a lot of hiking and biking, and I even do convertibling, meaning even my car supports the outdoors when I have the top down. And so with that in mind, now that you know a little bit about us, now we will give you a little bit about the Master of Data Science degree. But before I actually get into, we get into the sort of the meat and potatoes in this, we're going to drop a poll because we want to know a little bit about you too, to help map your context to this degree. So we're wondering, when was the last time you were in a classroom? So we've just dropped this, and please respond with the radio button that best applies to your experience and your circumstance. We'll give you a minute to respond, and then we'll share the results here. And when we say classroom, it could be, in-person classroom or online classroom, any classroom as far as that goes, where you were a learner. And while you're filling that out, and I'm waiting for the results to drop, one of the reasons we ask these poll questions is, again, your context can matter to a program that you choose to join. And so we'd like to at least address, that context and how that can relate to your experience with the Master of Data Science in this sort of online environment within Coursera. So we'll see how that goes. Right now, I'm not seeing the results dropping yet. But I'll give it a little bit more time to see where that heads. Okay. There we go. Okay. So what's interesting is this is about our 4th or 5th one of these webinars with prospective students interested in this degree. And this seems kind of in line with what we've seen in the past. There's a spread. I mean, some of you are fresh out of another degree and you're wanting to jump back into this one. Others have been out for a bit, maybe working for a little bit of time, and you want to further your education. Others of you have been quite some time, including 10 or more years ago, where you might be looking to make a career change or just interested in this topic because it's relevant, that kind of thing. And the whole point of this degree is that we want to sort of meet you all where you're at. So we are trying to do this in such a way that we accommodate people who really have got that momentum going and want to complete their masters, and others who have been out for a while. We want to give you some time to sort of understand this ecosystem and transition back into your study. So we really want to try to meet you where you're at across this spread. Okay, so with that in mind, let me jump into the next question, which is, what are you hoping to learn here today? So we're going to drop a poll for that one as well. and then we'll give some responses to that also in a moment. Okay, I just wanted to filter out some background noise there while you're answering the poll question. Yeah, and again, we recognize that this is a big commitment of time, energy, and relatively less commitment of money, but still some money. We'll get to that too. So we want to make sure that we address a lot of those questions, because anytime you want to make this kind of an investment, we want to make sure we're addressing what your questions or concerns are with making this investment. Okay. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about data science as a field or degree subject, we will cover what is data science, what does it mean? For those who are interested in career options, we do have some lists of potential careers that you might go into after completing this degree. We'll also go over the parameters of the time commitment and the tuition costs for this, and what the application and admission requirements are, which I think are really great in terms of removing barriers. And for those of you who have other additional questions, there will be a Q&A session at the end of this that we can address those as well. Okay, so with that in mind, now we're going to jump into some of the things so you'll see what we're going to cover today. So we'll talk about what is data science and what is in our Master of Data Science program, what new skills and career possibilities are possible from this, what might you unlock from completing this degree, and then what's the time commitment, what's the monetary commitment, and then, all right, if you're interested after we give our spiel, what's next? What do you do? How do you enroll? And then a general Q&A afterwards. So let's start a little bit with why choose this degree. There are a lot of degrees out there, a lot of master's degrees, a lot of tech master's degrees, a lot of colleges and universities where you can do that. Well, in this case, first of all, Pitt is a highly ranked Research One institution. And so getting this degree, I know that it's online, but it's a master's from Pitt. That is how it shows on your transcript and your diploma when you complete it. It doesn't say online or anything like that, which is fine. On campus or online, the quality is the same, so you get the same level of degree. And so you've got that Pitt reputation behind you if you get this degree. Also, Master's Data Science, as you may imagine, some of you know very well based on your careers, that data is something that businesses, governments, higher education, they use to drive innovation, strategic decision making. Like gathering data and understanding data and what to do with it is a huge piece of any institution, profit or nonprofit, moving forward. So MDS is relevant in that regard. It's a useful skill set to have for many different work environments. Also, that it would be a master's. On average, master's degree holders earn 200% more than high school graduates and 25% more than college graduates. So having that degree under your belt in many settings will click an HR button that will help with salary and salary negotiations. And in particular, when you look at the median and annual salary for data scientists, it's 6 figures. And you can look in the Occupational Outlook Handbook. You can look in all sorts of areas that would show what are salaries in this realm, and you'll see that it's a fairly lucrative area to be in. And again, master's degree holders average a lifetime earnings of 3.2 million, which is nothing to sneeze at. So that's a good start as to why. But I'll turn the floor back over to Dean Lee so he can tell you a little bit more about what data science is.
Thanks, Wes. So data science as a discipline is, the ability to extract insight and to learn from the vast amounts of data that are collected all over the place, right? Point of sale transactions, sensor readings, you name it. And so it brings together a lot of topics from, math and statistics and computing and algorithms to really extract that insight. And there's a lot of things you can do with a degree in data science, right? So you could be somebody who uses data to tell stories, right? To extract insight. You could be a data detective to try to get answers to questions that are out there. But the idea here, sort of the core unifying piece is, it's the set of techniques we're going to use to build a bridge between raw information and informed decision making. There are a lot of different job titles that one might go into, right? So there are jobs out there for data scientists, right? People building these, building and these knowledge extraction pipelines. Data analysts who are meant to, answer questions and extract insight from maybe business data, things like this. Data coordinators or data engineers who are more on the technical side of ensuring that data is amenable to that sort of analysis. But importantly, these are jobs that exist kind of across many sectors, right? So there's a lot of places where, you're going to run into tons of data, maybe more so than you would have 5-10 years ago. And maybe some of you that have been in the workforce for 10 years are seeing this. But in business and healthcare, supply chains, market research, finance, sports, any large organization has lots and lots of data that is, maybe difficult, easy to look at a quarter at a time. But now if I want to look at it holistically, these sorts of skills will be useful in doing that. And so this program was designed to try to meet the needs of adult learners and working professionals, right? So for folks who are perhaps working with data now, but would like to have a more formal background in doing so. So if you're working, in business logistics or something like this, and you've got an undergraduate degree in business, maybe you're comfortable working with spreadsheets or tabular data or using Tableau dashboards or things like this to draw insight, but you want to build up some of that sort of more basic analysis skill to work with the raw data and coordinate your own data sources, right? So this is a 100% online asynchronous program. So the idea here is that you can work around your work schedule, your personal life, and try to fit this education into your day without having to be on campus at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. There's no STEM background required. The formative courses in this certificate or in this master's degree actually have been offered on our campus as a certificate that folks from a number of disciplines, I think 9 of our graduate schools on campus have helped take these courses, and they're accessible to folks from library science to chemistry to engineering to public health, and all over the place. And the faculty who are developing and delivering these classes are the same people who teach in our on-campus programs.
Okay, so with that in mind, we're wondering, just to get a sense of your background when you would be coming into this degree and how that might map to what your initial learning would be. Yeah, what have you been working on? What's your field in your career right now? Or what are you doing in your life in general, so we can get a sort of a sense of that? Again, all these answers are okay, and we have people that come from all of these areas. Okay, so it looks like, wow, about half of you actually already have a background in STEM. So this would be, I take it to mean like sort of an enhancement to that, or it would be something in which you already have a career and you want to build up that higher level credential. That is fine. For those of you who are in business, those who can make sense of data and present it well and collect data, that is a fabulous complement to your business background. Those in human services, education, healthcare, again, a fabulous complement to what you're doing. You might go in a different direction than those in business, but the applications of data science to your fields are just as relevant. And those that are in parenting, caretaking, or meeting other responsibilities, looking for a career change, this can hopefully be just the jumpstart you need to have that credential that could get you a new job in an area related to data science, whatever the sub-discipline might be. And those who didn't answer this question or have other, if there are questions about the relevance for you, could bring that up in the Q&A at the end to see the exact relevance as far as that goes. But I imagine there would still be some relevance to most fields. Now, another question we have, why are you planning to pursue this degree? What do you hope to get out of it? And again, while you're answering this, it is certainly possible that you'd have more than one of these reasons as to why you're pursuing this degree. So you can put your top reason, but we'll sort of go through and address all of them as well. So even if you put your single top choice, that doesn't mean it has to be just that one. So right. So to increase your earning potential, indeed, a master's in and of itself as a credential checks boxes for many HR sort of hiring issues or promotion reviews and all that. So that's pretty much a very straightforward one. To join in a new industry, again, if you're already, it's for those of you who said you're in, let's say, education or health services, but maybe you want to go into business, or you're in business, or maybe you want to make the jump to education or whatever. All of these things could be possible because, again, data science skills apply across many different disciplines. So even if this would enhance your background in your current job area, it might also give you just the broad enough skill set so that if you want to make a jump into something else, you can. And again, pursuing a promotion, this can show that your skill sets are increasing and your knowledge is valuable. So this can be hopefully another facet that can be in your portfolio when you're being reviewed for promotion. And this one is actually, it's not many of you are indicating this, but if you are working and your employer does have an education benefit, I think you'll find as we review the cost and the timing that this would be very friendly to most employers who would have a benefit. It would be something that would be hopefully easy to be covered by an employer. So that would be very helpful. Also, to explore a personal interest. If you have the time and the money and you just want this knowledge set, it can be very useful in terms of how you engage with the world and make sense of it or whatnot. So even if you don't need it specifically for employment or promotion, but it's something that's an intellectual curiosity to you, I'm hoping that this would expand your horizons as well. And then for those of you who said other, ideally, if you have questions about that, we could address this during the Q&A. Okay. So let's go into the features. So, okay, let's say you want to do this, and so far we've kept your interest peaked. It's a very, I would contend, a very compact degree. There are 10 classes. Each class is 3 credits. So it's a total of 30 credits. And in that 30 credits, the last class that's a capstone is sort of designed for you to work on projects and think of ways in synthesizing your learning in the other 9 courses. Again, no STEM background is required. You don't need an undergrad STEM degree. You would need an undergrad degree of some sort, and we have you show proof of that. But as long as you have an undergrad degree, then you could start from scratch. I mean, again, you might pick up and hit the ground running. If you have a STEM background, it might be a little easier to transition, but the idea would be that we are working under the assumption that we would be teaching you this from scratch. The time to complete would be 20 to 36 months, just so that you know this is currently being built out as a part-time degree where you would take 1 or 2 classes at a time. And so the idea might be that you could think of it that you'd start, let's say if you're starting this fall, you might start with 1 class, then take 2 classes in the spring, another class in the summer, 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring. And as it goes through, that's the manner in which 1 or 2 classes at a time. And then you'd be able to finish this within, less than 2 years to 3 years, depending on what your pace is, 1 or 2 classes. And that might be different from person to person in terms of what your own work-life balance allows, whether it be 1 or 2 classes. Because these are master's level courses, so they are a time commitment. In terms of getting started, one of the unique features of this, in addition to having no STEM background required, is that we have what's called a performance-based admission course as a pathway. What that means is that you have, again, 10 classes to complete the master's. That's a total of 30 credits. But the very first class that's required of the master's, the first of the 10, data-centric computing, is viewed as a performance-based admission class, which you would just enroll in as a non-degree student. And once you complete it with a B or better, and we verify that you have a bachelor's degree in something that's relevant, that's accredited or equivalent to an accredited 4-year undergrad degree in the US. Once we have proof of that degree and you complete this with a B or better, that is your admission into the master's. So you'd already be 1 class in and you'd have 9 more to go. But that first class is sort of like your taste test. And then as long as you pass it with a B or better, you're good. And so that is your pathway into the master's. It is your admission. So data-centric computing is the first 3-credit class. It is required of the degree, but you wouldn't be admitted to the degree until you complete the class. And then while you're taking that first class, we would be verifying your degree. So, and again, the strategy we have is we're trying to minimize the barriers for your completion, successful completion. So you don't have to like take all, these standardized tests. You don't have to gather a lot of materials. You don't have to complete a statement of purpose or get letters of recommendation. You just have to show that you can do it. Take the first class, and you have to prove to us that you have an undergrad degree. And even then, if we can help it, we wouldn't ask you to send in a transcript. There's a national clearinghouse that we can do to verify if you have a US 4-year accredited undergrad degree. And we'll try to do that automatically while you're taking your first class. And if we do it, we'll confirm, be like, good news, we've confirmed your degree. However, please know that if you're an international student or if you're a US citizen who took a degree internationally, so if you have something that's outside of the US for your undergrad degree, we would ask you to have that evaluated by, it's called a NACE's approved evaluation service. And if you're an international student from a country where English is not the official language, you'd need to verify a certain level of English language proficiency by taking a standardized test like a TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo. And again, for example, we don't prefer one or the other, but Duolingo, for example, is online. It's like $60. It's not a huge investment of time or money to show that verification that you've got enough English proficiency to succeed in the class if you're in the major, if you're an international student. And that's basically how you get in. So you take the class, you need to succeed in it, and while you're taking it, we do all this other verification. As long as it's done and you get the B or better, you're in. And so the study flow is in terms of, let's say you're in, you take that first class, you get all the verification. Once you're done that, then that unlocks the other 9 classes. Well, actually, you take 8 substantive classes that would pertain to the essence of the master's itself. And then your final class would be that capstone where you show that you've been able to synthesize the knowledge into like a project or some other thing where you're evidencing that you understand what you've studied. And then you've got a master's. Now I'll turn the floor back over to Adam to discuss a little bit more about what that curriculum is, of those classes. What is the meat and potatoes of what you would study?
Thanks, Wes. So, as Wes said, our performance-based admissions course is the first course that you're going to take. And this is kind of setting the foundation for everything that comes afterwards. And that course is going to cover a couple weeks of programming in the Python programming languages, a little bit of time on exploratory data analysis, and a little bit of time on an introduction to predictive modeling. From there, you'll proceed into 2 foundation courses that we have, and these will be rolling out this fall. One is mathematical and statistical foundations for data science. So this is, in order to really understand, how these models work, we want to make sure that you've got firm grounding on the mathematical and statistical concepts that will allow you to make informed decisions. Likewise, we're going to have a course on responsible data science, right? Not only just looking at can we make decisions on this, or how should we make decisions on this, right? Data reflects people, it reflects organizations, it reflects a lot of things that we want to make sure we're accounting for as we're making these decisions. From there are 3 other courses. So there's one on managing, querying, and preserving data. So this would be looking at things like relational and graph data, and data stewardship and things like this. There's a course that spends a bunch of time on applied predictive modeling. So how do we, model things based on our data, and how do we make predictions based on data we've seen? And then there's a course on data visualization. So how do we effectively communicate with our data? From there, you'd move into elective courses, and some of the electives that we're developing are applied Bayesian data analysis, applied deep learning, cloud computing, and text as data. So looking at different aspects of data science at an elective depth. And finally, as Wes said, a capstone course, right? Looking at applications of data, right? So how do we take a project from the beginning all the way, how do I start with a problem statement, gather data, clean data, make decisions, gather insights, and communicate those results with others. So I want to say just a couple of words about some of the faculty who are, teaching and developing these courses. So this summer, Professor Babachenko is teaching our performance-based admissions course. And this is kind of, exciting. Like this course grew out of a course that grew out of another course. And sort of the genesis course for all of this was a course that Dimitri developed several years back on giving pharmacy students access or competencies in Python programming. So they could go into sort of drug analysis and drug discovery and things like this. That evolved into a course that we teach on campus, which then evolved into this course. So it's been, it's exciting that he's coming back to this course after starting it several years ago. Professor Frank is a faculty member in our Department of Informatics and Network Systems, also where Dimitri is a faculty member, who does a lot of work with sort of economics and sort of the future of work and looking at ways that data relates to the workforce and trends in employment and things like this. He's developing our mathematical and statistical foundations course, and will be the one teaching it this fall. Our responsible data science course is being co-developed by Professor Burton, who's on the screen here, and Professor Nora Mattern, who are both in our Department of Information Culture and Data Stewardship. So they're working together to develop that course, and Matt will be teaching it in the coming year.
Thanks, Adam. So again, this is, just to be clear, the upshot is this is, again, even though we've tried to remove the barriers to entry, which I'll talk a little bit more about, like to get into this, we want to make it easy for you to try this out and engage with it. But please know this is a master's from an accredited R1 university. So these are top-notch faculty, and these are substantive classes. So this will definitely be a commitment of your time. But again, we don't expect you to have a background in STEM, but it will be a real commitment to a real master's program that will take a good bit of your time. And that's really exciting because you'll walk away with some pretty deep knowledge. But in terms, back to the barriers and removing them, we have tried to make this accessible and affordable. I've already talked about the accessibility in the sense that you really take the first class, and if you pass it and you show proof that you've got your degree, you're in. We try to make it as easy as possible to get into the program as long as you're engaged and you can perform appropriately. The other part, the affordable part, is that the full degree the tuition for the entire program at this point is $15,000. That's approximately $500 per credit, then plus fees. So it'll be a little bit more than that when you factor in the fees per term, but it's, again, for the entire master's, $15,000 plus a little bit for fees. And comparing that to, other colleges and universities with traditional tuition, where that would be one semester's worth of tuition. This is the entire degree. So again, we tried to make this accessible and affordable. And again, with that time frame, remember, if you're thinking $500 per credit, so it's $1,500 a class. And if you're taking 1 to 2 at a time, that's $1,500 to $3,000 per term that you would be taking your studies. And so if you map that back to a company's educational benefits, hopefully that would fit within whatever most companies would allow for educational benefits in a given year. The cost would map nicely to that. Also, in some cases, if you're paying out of pocket, there are some payment plans that you can break into, I think, like 3 payments or 6 payments, where you'd have to start paying well in advance of the term in which you start the classes. But again, that might make it a little more palatable to you. And instead of paying $1,500 to $3,000 up front, you break it into payments that you could then make. And then there may be financial aid available for people who are sort of half-time. Like, in other words, when you're taking that PBA class, like one class at a time typically doesn't trigger federal aid eligibility. But if you're at least half-time, which is 4.5 credits or more at the grad level, then you are. And realistically, that means if you're taking 2 classes or more at a time in a given term, in those terms in which you would be taking 2 classes or more, that would trigger financial aid eligibility for those of you who would complete a free application for federal student aid and see if you're eligible. Okay, in terms of student resources, again, we talked a lot about the academics and the curriculum, and that this is a master's from an R1 university, and that would give you certain affordances as well. There'd be live faculty office hours so you could interact with the instructors. There would be teaching assistants and academic support. We call them course facilitators, who would help out and make sure they answer some of your questions and make sure that you know what's going on in the classroom environment. We also have student services led by myself, and we have a student success specialist named Maria, where we would be able to work with you, interact and discuss questions, deal with academic advising, also deal with career resources for you, those kinds of things to let you know what, like there's career fairs, resume reviews, things like that you'd have available to you as well. And then basically there's, as we mentioned, the same kinds of resources as on-campus students that I just went over. So people to help you with advising, the faculty interacting with in a live capacity, again, teaching assistants, student services, career resources, student success, and resume drafting and interview prep. Okay, and so what you need basically to join the MDS. So again, if you're like, yep, I really am interested in this. How do I do this again? What's my process for admission? Again, you'd need to complete the registration form, sign up for in the next available term that you'd want to begin your studies. You'd sign up for the PBA course. Again, that's that 3-credit data-centric computing class that is the first of the 10 courses required for the master's degree. You'd need to take the class, pay for it, successfully complete it with a B or better, and then go through the degree verification process, which ultimately we hope would be mostly automated. But if not, like if you studied in another country or we couldn't automatically verify your degree, you might need to provide us with a transcript or an evaluation of an international transcript. And then if you're an international student, you'd need to demonstrate English proficiency on one of the tests I mentioned before. To put a finer point on it, you'd need to have an 80 or higher on the TOEFL for your combined score, a 6.5 band score in IELTS or higher, and a 110 or higher in Duolingo. That's it. That's how you join and are admitted into the Master of Data Science program. And so if you're like, okay, this seems reasonable to me, I'm ready to make a serious commitment to a master's program, what do I do to get started? Well, you go to the Coursera page that has a link where you'd complete the enrollment form. And the same enrollment form is on the Coursera site that we have linked here, or the Pitt, our School of Computing Information website. You go to there and you choose apply and you complete an enrollment form. And again, you have plenty of time to do that. But for fall, if you want to start this fall, in fall of 2024, you need to make sure that you would submit that enrollment form by no later than August 16th. And then whether you submit that today or on August 16th, you need to be prepared to start your classes on August 26th. That is the start of the fall term. It's basically like a 15-week term, and your class, the first class would be broken into modules, and you'd have to complete each module successfully. It's bounded by a semester, just like a regular on-campus class would be, the 15-week semester. And you basically have to do regular progress. So even though it's asynchronous, and also like there's not a specific classroom time that you'd have to be there, you'd have to commit a certain amount on average of hours each week to make this work. And whether it's at 2 in the morning or in the afternoon or in the early morning, like 7 a.m. or whenever you have time, or on the weekends, all of that works. But you'd have to conceptualize this in that sense, almost like an on-campus master's, in the sense that you'd have to do regular work. You'd have to be paced at a regular schedule by these modules to get through it. But again, it's got, I think, just the right amount of flexibility, because you don't have to worry about a class time, and you could do things on the weekend and whatnot, but you would have to pace yourself accordingly to make this commitment. And then if assuming you follow through with that and you do well in the class and get that B average, then you're admitted to the program as a degree seeking student. And that's pretty much how to get started. Complete the enrollment form by the deadline, prepare to start, go through the pace of the 15 weeks, complete the work, and if you get the B or better and we verify your degree, you're in. So I'll turn the floor back over to Adam to sort of summarize and then lead us into the Q&A.
All right, thanks, Wes. Yeah, so just a handful of takeaways from the meeting. When I go to the next one. So the requirements for admission, again, we're not asking you to complete a sort of typical application for graduate study. There's no application fee, there's no application form, no letters of recommendation, no standardized testing required. Instead, what you'll do is fill out a fairly short enrollment form that, upon completing that, you'll get enrolled in our performance-based admissions course. If you're able to complete that course with a grade of a B or better, and we're able to verify your bachelor's degree, or ask for your help in verifying that degree if you're an international student. And we're able to verify English language proficiency, then you're going to be automatically admitted from there. So the performance-based admissions course is a full course. It's a full graduate course here at Pitt that does incur tuition. You've got to pay for that course and take it, but once you have completed that course, you move into the degree program. We've tried to make this accessible and affordable. There are payment plans available. If you need them, you pay per credit enrolled, so you don't have to pay for the full degree upfront or anything like that. If you are taking, as Wes said, at least 4.5 credits in a given term, you are eligible for Title IV federal aid if you're a U.S. resident. And if you have employment benefits through your employer, this degree is set up such that it will likely cover the majority of your costs. In addition, we'd like you to be successful in the course. There are live faculty and course facilitator office hours and other live sessions. There are assistants and academic supports if you've got questions. And in addition, our career services team is there to help make connections for what's next. And with that, I think we'll start working our way through the questions. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. That's where we're going to be working from.
Right. And just to follow up on that, I think the methodology we're doing with this, and you probably noticed this as you've gone along and entered in questions, we have a team behind the scenes, thank you, Sasha and Alexa, who are answering as many questions that seem like one-offs as would be appropriate, but if there are things that they deem appropriate for Adam and I to answer, they've left them as something that they would recommend that we answer live and slog through every answer that's open that is recommended in the order that we see them based on time. And then when we get through that, as new questions come in, we might answer them on the spot as well. But it looks like right now we've got 21 open questions, and we're going to start with the one I think that's at 1213. Is military tuition assistance able to be used to pay for parts of this program? Adam, let me take a stab at this, and you can chime in if you see fit. I think the best way, this is a really good way of asking this, because I think the issue is that we cannot predict whatever your source of financial support is, but there are many ways in which Pitt will accept third-party payments, right? So whether it's your employer or the military, we accept anything that would be tuition assistance or federal aid through the appropriate process. But since Pitt doesn't control that process, you'd need to work with your provider of that aid to make sure that their requirements are met. And then as you go through, let's say, for example, if it's the military or it's an employer and they need to do third-party payment, there's a payments office at Pitt that can give you the details on exactly what you need to do for third-party payment. And in fact, one of the things that we do is, like, when you're, I didn't mention it yet, but when you're signed up for and taking that first performance-based admissions class, we actually will send you a bunch of like hopefully just in time, timed release emails with that kind of information. We'll be like, hey, guess what? Payment deadlines are coming up soon. Here's an FAQ about payment. If you need to do third-party payment, look at this website, and then it has all the instructions for what to do. So I think the answer would be, is military tuition assistance able to be used? Yes. It's probably a third-party payment, and you'd have to follow whatever that process is, which we would email you once you're enrolled in the PBA degree to enact that.
Yeah, so what I would add to that is I would encourage you, I don't know the definitive answer to this. Let me start by saying that. But Pitt does have an Office of Veteran Services. And so I'd encourage you to reach out to our MDS support email address and just ask this question there, and we can go ahead and try to find a definitive answer for you.
And then, yeah, Adam, I think if you don't mind taking the next one from Glenn. might be a
Yeah,
good
so
word.
looking at, what's the difference between a degree in data science compared to data analytics? And so I think, I would summarize this by saying we're looking kind of at the entire data life cycle here, looking from, thinking through how we're sourcing data, how we're preparing data, being thoughtful about how we analyze data and how we draw conclusions and whether those conclusions are defensible. So it's going to get at, not just the analytics, but also sort of understanding the data pipelines and understanding some of the decision making that goes around into, taking action based on that data. All right, there's a couple of related questions I see here about, prior degrees. So somebody asking about, information systems degree or a master's in computer science and whether there's going to be differences. There likely will be differences, but the question is whether, going from a master's of computer science to a master in data science is the right move for you specifically. And so, like, I think if you wanted to, again, reach out to our support email, and if you've got, course descriptions or things like this, and you want to look at, whether this is going to take you in a new direction or whether it's going to be repetitive based upon, a prior degree, that's something we could work through with you. If you have taken, one or two courses that you do think, overlap to a significant degree with courses that are part of this, transfer credit is something that we can evaluate. So if that's the concern, it's like, I've got a degree in information systems. I took one course on data science. I'd like to do more. It is possible for us to evaluate course syllabi and determine whether or not there's a mapping to courses we teach that we are teaching, and we can handle those transfer credit requests.
Yeah, and Adam, if I could sort of riff off of what you're saying, I want to make sure that I understand a couple other dimensions of this that I'm reading into that. So with the computer science masters, like, let's say hypothetically, if one of the classes that you've taken, let's just pick one, it's an exact match, or we deem it to be an exact equivalent to one of the 10 classes in the MDS, our Master of Data Science. I don't think you can sort of double dip and have them count for both masters. However, if it might waive that requirement, so you might be able to take another elective class, I think. Is that correct, Adam? Where it's like if they have something that might be deemed equivalent, then they might go in a different direction. Although we would caution that there are a limited number of electives, so it might just, not really contribute to the expediting and making the degree be done faster. It's just that it might allow you to, like, diversify your background a little bit more, if that makes sense. And then for the person who had the undergrad degree, if I understand, in information systems and a data science minor, more or less relevant, I would say it would be relevant to the extent that it would be maybe an enhancement to what you've already learned. And I think that's where you might also kick into the degree earning potential, where you, like, having the master's might open different promotion aspects, or different, like, if you need to be a senior something in your organization and they require a master's, like, that's where that might help you in particular. And I'm seeing the next one is generative AI and natural language processing. Is that part of the program?
Yeah, so this will we are going to have a course on text as data, which will cover language quite a bit. So that is part of what we'll do. The applied deep learning course would also be touching on those sorts of topics. All right, let's see here. So I'm seeing one on information systems that we've talked about, degree in mathematics with a second in computer science, focus on data analytics. Can some of those core courses be replaced? Again, if you've got courses that you think are likely overlapping with topics in this program, where we can evaluate course syllabi and look for equivalencies there.
James Fall. I'm looking at Joseph James one about 2 courses. Is this available? Oh, I'd say it this. I'm not sure I'm reading this correctly. So I think it looks like Joseph is saying, like, what's the pace? Like, trying to look at how many classes I would take a semester to complete all 10. And I might do the math where, again, your first term, since it's the performance-based admission, you can't really take 2 classes. You have to take the data-centric computing solo. So semester 1 of your MDS would be 1 class only. But then, let's say you take 1 in the fall, then you could take 2 in the spring, Could you take 2 next summer, Adam? I can't remember if you could then take 2 in the summer. I think you can. And then you could take 2 from there on out. So it'd be, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 1. So if you did it like part-time like that, you could do it'd almost be like bookends. You could do like your PBA, then take 2 classes a term for a number of semesters, and then take your capstone as your last class in the final term. That might be one flow that would make sense. So fall 1, then the following spring 2, the following summer 2, the following fall 2, the following spring 2, and then capstone in your final summer for a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 terms.
All right. So there's a couple of questions in here about Pitt staff tuition benefits. Best source of information there is the benefits office. They're aware of the program. And so I would encourage you to reach out to the benefits office. I know people are using the Pitt tuition benefit as part of this program. And so they will have all the details on making that work.
There is one heads up that I did learn very specifically that I'll share here for Pitt people. As a Pitt staff member, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute, that performance-based class is non-degree. Like, do I only get the benefit if I'm a degree student? It's like, no, as a Pitt employee, you can get that benefit for non-degree. But please note that you have to have been here beyond, I think, your provisional period. You have to wait until your benefits kick in. And then also, if you're thinking for spousal benefits, there's some weirdness with that where the non-degree, if it's like a child or spouse, it doesn't apply the same. So to Adam's point, some of those nuances you really will only get answered by HR in the benefits office. So you need to think about who's taking it in what capacity, and have you been here beyond your provisional period. One other question that's odd that some Pitt employees have asked me in the past is that their particular department has asked if we participate in the benefits program. And I can say that, yes, we do participate in the benefits program, so that as long as you meet whatever your department's benefits parameters would be, you can utilize that to meet this degree. Oh, next one looks like it would be me. Will there be an in-person graduation ceremony? Will we graduate with the rest of Pitt graduates? I would say it this way. I actually coordinate for our school the graduation ceremonies for our school. And I can tell you that you would be, when you get to the point where you graduate, you'd be certainly invited. But one of the challenges is that given that you'd be online, it might not be realistic for you to come to Pittsburgh. So we wouldn't force that. So typically what we do in any of our graduation ceremonies that are on campus is we live stream it and record it so that you'd have that option. One of the things that we don't know yet that might be TBD depending on what people want is, would we want to have a separate online ceremony just for MDS? We haven't determined that yet, but I'd be amenable to that if that would be what the population's preference would be. But I can say right now without hesitation that when you graduate, you'd be invited to the graduation ceremony for our school. And if you can't attend, you'd be able to watch it live stream or as a recording. Oh,
all right. So for the PBA course, is there a way to see your grade, or do we not know it until the end? Yeah. So if you've not done a degree course on the Coursera platform before, you do have access to a grade book where you see essentially your grade on every assignment as you're going along. So you can get a feel for where you're at. There's nothing's hidden from you until you finish. So that is visible. There's another course about the success rate of the first cohort in the PBA course. That cohort is only partway through the course. So we're actually in the midst of running our first cohort right now. So it's a question you're going to have to ask us kind of in August, I think. But having looked at the grade book, I think students are overall doing well so far.
The pre-recorded lectures, they're brand new as of now.
Yeah, they're brand new, right? So this is our first semester running the course. So these are our brand new lectures. Everything is being developed right now. So these are all are fresh. Wes, do you want to talk about the PBA?
Yeah, I was just gonna say you mean how can we get confirmation that we've enrolled in the PBA successfully? That one? Is that what you're thinking? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, again, this is the kind of thing where It's interesting. I'll kick into advisor mode. The way the flow of this works is, again, fairly unique at Pitt. That PBA class, since we wanted to remove barriers, when you submit your interest form. So just to be clear, when you submit that form saying, I want to do this, that is simultaneously the form that enrolls you in the first class and is your application to the master's. So we will expect that when you submit that form, we will enroll you and you will need to pay your tuition and take the class. And if you pass it successfully and show us proof of your degree, you're admitted into the program. Now, in terms of confirmation, obviously you submit the enrollment form, then it's not instantaneous. Like, it'll take a little bit. And what we'll do is we'll send you periodic emails where we'll say, hey, do this to activate your Pitt account. Oh, now connect your Pitt account with the Coursera account so you can log into Coursera to take the class. And now, now complete this orientation class. Oh, now you've completed the orientation. You now have access to the degree. So it's not one thing. It's actually a series of emails where we walk you through the process of getting started. So you'll know that you've done that, in that you will initially enroll and give us an email that's your personal one. But then ultimately we'll give you a Pitt email. Once you activate that, we'll send you periodic emails to your Pitt email that will confirm everything as you go along. Oh,
Right.
next one, active one.
Yeah, I'll jump on the elective one. So right now there's not a whole lot of elective flexibility with the program. As the program grows and we launch more electives, that will be that will change. But for now, it's fairly fixed as a curriculum. As you enroll in this program in the MDS, like, you are eligible to take the MDS courses only. Like, the rest of our courses on campus are not part of this program.
Looks like the portfolio question is next.
Yeah, so essentially, like, a lot of these courses are project based. So you're going to work with data and work with data sets. And as you progress through the program, you will essentially be able to collect projects that you can make externally visible, and you could show things that you've done, that you've developed, that skills that you've learned that way. So that's just sort of part of working with this, is that a lot of it is like project based, and you're going to be able to tell a story with that.
Okay. How difficult is the math intensive? Why don't I take a starting stab at that, and then you can finish that. Yeah. Adam, my understanding is there's just the one class, the mathematical foundations. And again, given that we don't expect a STEM prerequisite, it's not super intense. I feel like, again, I don't have this background, but from the outside looking in, I have a statistics background. And I feel like you have to have some understanding of statistics to understand how you analyze and make sense of data. So I think it's that deep, just deep enough to know how to analyze data. And I'll turn it over to Adam if he has more elaboration.
Yeah, I mean, like, assessing difficulty is gonna vary from person to person, right? What I might find difficult, you might find easy, and vice versa. So we do have a mathematical and statistical foundations course where there's going to be an expectation that you roll your sleeves up and understand some of the math and statistical foundations. But the vast majority of the program is focusing on applying data science tools and techniques to real world problems. All right, so the international student with a Pitt Statistics master's degree. This is an interesting case. So essentially what we need to verify is the bachelor's degree, unfortunately, not any subsequent degrees. And so you likely would not be automatically verified. But if you were admitted to Pitt as a master's student, it will be easy for us to manually verify you, is my intuition there.
Yeah, and I think as an international student with the Pitt Masters, that'll help with that will waive your English proficiency also. So yeah, that will be you in that way.
There's a question about tuition and whether that's guaranteed through the end of degree completion. So tuition at the university is revisited every year, and increases may happen, though these tend to be on the order of very small percentage. So I can't say that it's going to be $500 a credit for the entire time you're here, but it's not like it's going to double or anything like that. But this is something that is centrally managed at the university. Okay. So, question about recommend learning to code beforehand. It's a great question. You do not need to learn how to code beforehand. If you would like to do some coding beforehand, that's certainly not going to hurt you. But as I said, like there are 4 courses that are part of this that we teach on campus. And we've got one significant population of students who takes these courses are our library and information science students, many of whom come from, no programming background, and they're able to succeed in the program. So I wouldn't say that you need to learn how to program before coming to this degree. But that said, however, if you wanted to spend some time messing around with Python and getting some, familiarity yourself, it isn't going to hurt you.
Yeah, and I'd say relatedly, somebody else asked, like, because they don't have a STEM background, should they take their time to enroll in courses like linear algebra, calculus, statistics? I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but I think that wouldn't hurt to have that kind of background, but there's no expectation that you would have it beforehand. Any background in math that you would need would be taught as part of the program. That being said, one other perk that I'll mention is that once you do this and you get started in the PBA class, you will have access to a subset of free courses offered by Coursera, not for credit, that Pitt students can access. And some of those actually are on coding or an introduction to analysis and things like that. And so they might not be quite as heavy as an actual 3-credit, 4-credit grad or undergrad class, but that might be a nice way to like take these subjects out for a spin. So that would be another way that you might be able to like start to play around in that world, to start thinking in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer to the question is that no, background courses in calculus or programming are not required. However, if you feel that would help with your confidence, right, that's something that no one would discourage you from doing, but it's not something that's strictly required for the program. Go ahead, Wes. You want to?
think? Well, I'm seeing the next one I'm seeing is it possible to finish courses early or test out? And I think that, again, because it's paced as a regular class, you can work ahead to a point, but I mean, they're real live instructors and course facilitators. And so I think it would still be paced by module. Like you can only work ahead so much, and it still follows, a linear progression throughout time, even though there's not a specific time where you're in the classroom. Does that make sense, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, so like each of these courses that you're going to enroll in takes place over the course of a semester. And so like, yeah, you might be able to finish the material before the end of the semester, but in the end, like the grade's not going to post and you're not going to be able to enroll in other courses until the following semester. So you have some ability to speed up and slow down around, things going on in your life, but it's not necessarily the case that like you could do, say, do the PBA course in 3 weeks and then in the middle of the semester start another course. Like that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. And they also asked about testing out, and I don't think you could really test out so much. I mean, if you have accredited degree work that's not part of another degree that you've completed before, and it could be evaluated for equivalency to a point, and so you might be able to grade a few classes, but I think that's the extent of the overlap.
Yep.
Then the next one I see is detailed PBA subjects. Coursera said 10 weeks covering 10 courses. I'm not sure if I understand what that means, but I would say it this way, that the performance-based class is specifically on data-centric computing. It's introducing you to the world of data science. And so that's what that topic could be. Typically, again, these are all, it's not 10 weeks per se. It's each term is typically in the fall, it would be 15 weeks or so. In the spring, it'd be 15 weeks or so. And then in the summer, that's where it's a little bit, is 12 weeks instead of, so it's a little faster pace if you take classes in the summer, but you would still be following those for each class that you take. Each class is either in a 12-week or a 15-week capacity, and you have 10 of them. Let's see what the next one.
So the next question is about financial services compliance. So it's a great question. And unfortunately, given that we have our first cohort of students now 6 weeks into the first course in the program, I can't really tell you whether or not, people with that background, have gone on to do great things, because we're ourselves just starting. But it seems like exactly the type of, thing we'd like to be able to, provide a program for. All right, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I could take the next one, the world education system. Yeah, so if you look, when you get start this program and you start the PBA, we'll actually email you a link with all the NACE's accredited evaluation services. And I know for a fact that the World Education Services, or WES, which is my namesake, is on that list. So that's totally fine. WES does work. And it's usually, you don't need a course by course evaluation. It would be a degree equivalency evaluation, because really all we need to know is this equivalent to an accredited US 4-year bachelor's degree? We don't care about what courses exactly map. Oh, that's a good question. So assuming we are successful in the initial, so let's say hypothetically, let's use a real world example. Let's say you take the data-centric computing, the performance-based admissions class this fall, and you complete it successfully, you've got the B or better, and we verify your degree. And we're like, congratulations, you're admitted to MDS. Then you could say, whoa, I need time out. I can't start any more classes right away. You can kind of defer, take some time off up to, I believe, about a calendar year before you'd have to apply again, if I remember correctly. So you can take a pause for up to about a year before you reach your expiration date.
All right, so and I can take these last two, I think. So does their curriculum cover causal inference? Our current set of courses are not getting into causal inference, but that doesn't mean that it's not a topic for an elective in the future. And then the last question here is about the difference between a Master's of Science and Data Science and this one. And that's a great question. I can speak from the perspective of our school, is that, this is a professional master's degree that's meant to prepare you to go apply these concepts in practice. Our Master's of Science, say in computer science, is a research-based degree that's generally like, setting the foundation for future research and sort of the deep understanding of the foundations of the discipline. And so here we want to make sure that you understand the techniques that you're doing, that you can make defensible decisions and do a good job in the analyses that you want to do, but it's not necessarily preparing you for sort of, a PhD in data science or, this sort of thing, or further research in the space.
Okay, cool. I want to see from Joseph, he'll let us know by August 8th. That's great. Yep. And if you don't, you can just apply for a future term. Let's see, individual has a degree from US Canada. Would he still need to perform? It's funny you should mention that. We're in the process of figuring out for Canadian universities exactly what process we will do. I'd say to be safe, it would be good, but we might be able to work out something where if it's from North America, we might be able to come up with another methodology. So stay tuned on that one. Last one that came up, Python. I guess that would be an Adam one.
Yeah, so a lot of the degree is in Python. You will do some other things as well. So you'll use some R. You're going to learn some SQL. You're going to learn some other things along the way, but Python is used for a lot of it. Cool. With that,
well,
that was a lot of questions. A lot of great questions.
You win the prize. I think of all the webinars we've had, you might have thrown the most rapid fire questions at us, and they were very good. So thank you. We appreciate how engaged you are. We hope to see you online in the classroom in the future. So with that, I think we're going to close this out, and we wish you luck with everything. And it was great having this time with you. Thank you.